Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our listeners. Welcome to the ADHD Reframe Project. I am Emma, I am the host, and today we have our first guest for this year, 2026. So today I'm joined by Dr. Cristina Louk. I'm joined by the amazing Dr. Cristina. Cristina, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Washington, and I specialize in ADHD and trauma, and I am a fellow ADHDer.
Woohoo! Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. So what's your work? What are you doing at the moment? What work do you do apart from the counselling?
Yeah. So I do, I work with people one-on-one in Washington. I do therapy work. I also do assessments for adults that suspect they might have ADHD. I do comprehensive assessments to give them clarity. I also do a lot of advocacy work here in the state. I'm currently president-elect of the Washington Mental Health Counselors Association. So doing work to better our industry for my fellow therapists. So I stay pretty busy.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at your website last week and then I had another look yesterday, and I have to say my imposter syndrome was just pinging it all over the place because I always, it's just an Emma thing, I think. It's just, and I was like, oh my God, this woman is like, she's a doctor to start with. But yeah, I think it's important just to open dialogue, between women, particularly ADHD women, because I think the late diagnosis for me personally has
Mm,
been the biggest trauma response that I've ever had. But you're
yeah.
obviously a fellow ADHDer, so would you like to tell me a little bit about your diagnostic journey?
I would love to. And I want to just validate for those getting their diagnosis as adults. Growing up not knowing that you had ADHD, you've internalized a lot of your symptoms as personal failings. And so a lot of us that get the later diagnosis, there's a lot of trauma in that because we come through this going, well, there's something wrong with me. It's like, no, nothing's wrong with you. Your brain's different and it's just to be celebrated. So I just wanted to honor that because a lot of late diagnosed ADHDers have additional struggles. For me, I was diagnosed really young. In fact, the first time the teachers kicked me out of class to go to my first psychologist, I was in kindergarten because I didn't want to do a puzzle. They never asked me why. Well, I already did that puzzle. Give me something new. Hello, ADHD, but this was 1978. Girls didn't have ADHD. They didn't really know a lot about it. So they just sent me back like, no, there's nothing wrong. Just give her a new puzzle. In third grade, I was reading Shakespeare at home, but I was in remedial English. Why am I not reading at school? Dixie's Jane. That's great. Justice sensitivity. I can do this. I'm not going to do this. They said she can't read. They sent me away. Finally, I got my ADHD diagnosis and they're like, yeah, she can read. She's just not reading for you. So I got my ADHD diagnosis and things really changed in the fact that I understood myself now. My parents didn't want to medicate. So I didn't get any
Okay.
help, but people were like, well, why do you do that? And I was like, well, I have ADHD. Why do you do that? So for me, it became like I didn't internalize my struggles. I knew why and I didn't have a problem with it. So
Yeah.
for me, my ADHD became a strength. But for a lot of people not knowing, you guys are struggling against it. And it makes me sad. I just want everyone to get early diagnosis.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I was diagnosed in 2019 and I was 43 then, and I had no idea that I had it until
Yeah.
someone pointed it out to me when I was at work one day. I got promoted when I was working and I was sitting next to a different lady, and we worked in an open office, and it was just me and her in the office this afternoon. And she leaned over and just said to me, "You do know you've got ADHD, don't you, Emma?" And I was like, "What?" Like, no. And the stereotypical kind of little hyperactive, disruptive boy in the classroom was my go-to misconception around ADHD. And actually, I just laughed and I was like, no, I don't know. I haven't got ADHD. And then a week or so later, I went into the office and she printed off like a survey thing for me to fill out. So because she obviously, she says she has an ADHD radar. And I was just like, okay, no, I don't have ADHD. But she printed off the survey and I filled it out when I was in the office one day. And it was like 98% you have ADHD. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I've got ADHD. And then it just was
Mm.
like, and then obviously I Googled it, I read a bit about it, and I was like, oh my God, like I've got ADHD. And I think even back in 2019, there was still a lot of misinformation about
Uh-huh.
women and ADHD, or even girls and ADHD. And I know, obviously, we're making progress in the conversations and in in the information and the research that's happening. But even back then, my immediate misconception was, well, I'm not a boy, I'm not disruptive in the classroom, so
Right.
automatically I'm like, I don't have ADHD, when in fact I do have ADHD. And I just think that's why I love these conversations where we talk, I talk to other women, or we talk about our experiences with ADHD. So yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Why do you think your parents chose not to medicate them? Was there any particular reason?
I think it was, the early 90s and the stimulants were really, really strong. And I'm actually, in retrospect, glad they did. Now, unbeknownst to us, I always wanted to be a dancer. And so instead of medicating, they put me in ballet class. And I ended up spending 30 years teaching ballet in my adult life because ever since I got diagnosed, I've danced. And exercise is the number one symptom reduction outside of medication. So,
Yeah,
unbeknownst to me, I was self medicating through movement. And so I did see some symptom improvement, but I presented like the typical ADHD boy. I was hyperactive. That's the only reason I got discovered in kindergarten and then in third grade. Most women present subtly, very, very different. Their hyperactivity is in their head. They're ruminating. They're having higher justice sensitivity spikes, higher rejection sensitivity, more difficulty in social interactions. Very, very subtle. We're missing them because we're looking at this cookie cutter research of the hyperactive 12-year-old boy. And slowly we're researching more. I'm 53 now and I've gone through perimenopause and menopause. And what I didn't know, and I specialize in ADHD, is that perimenopause causes significant memory problems in ADHD
yeah,
women.
yeah.
5 studies, 6 studies, not very much, but I'm as a specialist, I'm learning as we go because we're just now studying women. And so I just want to highlight that we're different than the boys. We have a lot different differences. We have a lot of similarities, but they don't go through menopause and they don't go through what we have to go through. And so I just want to highlight the struggle that we have that's different than what's been researched. And we need to be talking more about our struggles to normalize this. We're not crazy. We're just different. We're just different
Yeah,
and not different in a bad way, you know?
I remember I started my psychology studies a couple of years ago, and I remember having a conversation with someone at the end of 2023, and they said the symptoms aren't different between ADHD in men and women, girls and boys. There's no hormones don't play a part in the symptoms of ADHD in women. And I wish I could go and find that person again, because I was doing
Yeah.
my pieces, because I was like, no, you're right. Because by that point, I was so obsessed with ADHD and trying to learn about it, read about it, and just, so much about it. So then I could help myself, but then I could help other people. And I think there's, conversations around perimenopause for women are almost sometimes non existent, because
Yeah.
you can't find any. I know there's probably research that's been done, but it's minimal at the moment, and you can't really find a lot of you can find information, but there's no actual science behind it, because it's just not happening yet, or it is happening, but it's just not published. And I think, one of the main reasons why I wanted to start, why I founded the ADHD Reframe Project, is because not just for women, but for adults, the more adults that are diagnosed later in life, the more trauma that we are experiencing compared to other people. And also, it's like we need to understand to differentiate between men and women, because the symptoms are very different. Like you said, I do have physical hyperactivity sometimes, but a lot of my hyperactivity, like you've just said, is in my brain, and my brain
Mhm.
never, ever, ever stops. It's
Yeah.
just, and it goes so quickly that it's like even trying to find a fitting metaphor for it is just, I can't, because it's just like, there's the 100 tabs open on a computer screen, or there's this or there's that. And it's like, the brain just races all the time, and then trying to kind of manage that and then kind of do your day-to-day living is a challenge. But I think it's really important. I'm glad that you've kind of highlighted the difference between, men and women, and then perimenopause, because I'm
Yeah.
just turned 50 at Christmas, just gone. And the perimenopause started, I think, from when I was about 40, because I had an ovary removed. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'll edit that tiny bit out. And then since then, it's like felt like although I am medicated, I felt like that my symptoms were getting worse. And it was only when I was like, perimenopause. But it's like I had to join the dots myself, because there's not a lot of information about that out there, is there?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's insane. And I know I said we will answer the questions, but I I prefer open dialogue, and I prefer to
I
wing it
like it
most of the
too.
time.
I like it too. This is perfect. I felt the same way. I had to connect the dots myself too. And I work in this field and I stay up on the research. I thought I knew everything there was to know about ADHD. I mean, this is my area of specialty. And I hit perimenopause and menopause with the rug being pulled out from under me. Like I couldn't remember the street next to me. Like that was gone. And then 30 minutes later, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's so and so street. And I couldn't and I thought I have early onset Alzheimer's. Like
Yeah.
there is something seriously wrong with my brain. And then I started to hear, "Oh, here's this study. Nope, it's ADHD. Oh, and then there's like 6 studies or 5 studies. And so we need to be talking about this. I need every woman who's about to hit perimenopause to be like, you're not going through Alzheimer's. You are not losing your mind. You're not losing your memory. It is just our symptoms are getting all fluctuated. And yes, our symptoms are connected to our hormones. When you brought that story up about that person who said, oh, there's no ADHD, one of the things coming through, getting my doctorate, the one thing that came through is, well, what are your sources? I'm like, I always have to cite my sources. So anybody gives me something, I'm like, okay, well, where's that? What research is that from? Like, give me the researcher's name and the study. And if they can't do it, then I'm like, I don't want to hear it. Because if there was a study and they were really excited about it, they would be like, oh, I heard this from Russell Barkley. Here's where you find it. But if they can't cite their sources, then
I'll remember that in the future, because I didn't think I didn't have an academic brain back then, whereas now I've got a bit of academic experience. I've had like the lurgy and stuff that's been going around. So yeah,
yeah.
it's right. I'll edit this bit out, so don't worry. But yeah, I wish I could find the person and kind of go back and say, actually, you know, you were wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, my
Well,
academic brain.
there's a lot of ableism out there too that we have to remember. There's still people out there that don't perceive ADHD as a disorder. They think that we're just using symptoms that everybody has and we're just making an excuse. But our brains are literally different. Like if I pulled a brain scan, we're going to have different connections. If I looked at the actual volume of our brain, there is differences. So it is not just this an excuse that we're making for symptoms. I mean, my brain's different than a neurotypical brain. So I think there's some ableism out there that they don't want to see it as a legitimate problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. And I did a couple of presentations last year to my university, and I talked about the hormones. I talked about the symptoms and how the symptoms vary. And I talked about hormones, and I talked about lots of other things as well. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental brain difference. And I talked a bit about dopamine and norepinephrine and the different regions of the brain that control or that they don't communicate with each other. So then that's where the neurodevelopmental part of ADHD comes from. And to be honest, I'm quite surprised. Well, I was quite surprised at the time, because I was like, but surely if you're working somewhere, you should maybe know this stuff. And then I realized that everyone else is not as obsessed with ADHD. And so it was just, it made me laugh. It literally made me laugh, because I'm just like, what do you mean you don't know this? And then I have to be reminded that, my obsession, my special interest and my passion and enthusiasm is ADHD. And it's like, there's not a lot of, I don't think I've ever met anyone So, thank my partner's probably thinking, "Thank the Lord." Because he's like, "If there's more than one of you, then I'm gonna cry." But yeah, it's just
Well, there is more than one because it is my special interest too. I didn't know anything really about ADHD for until I knew I had it. I knew about the symptoms. I didn't really know how to treat it or how to do anything with it. I medicated in my 20s, didn't really treat it other than medication. And it wasn't until I got really tired of having to just manage that I was like, I'm gonna get help. And I got help by going to school to learn about it and
yeah,
getting a PhD to become a specialist in it because the person that needs to help me is me. And
yeah.
so then I just now know everything there is to know. And I wish I would have known this many years ago because I could have really saved myself a lot of struggle in knowing it. But it is my special interest too. I want to know everything there is to know about my brain, more so for me, but more so for everybody else. I want to lift every ADHDer up to show them that our brains are special.
Yeah.
Yes, they're different, but not in a bad way, in a special way. And we have amazing, amazing strengths that if we could just minimize our struggles and maximize our strengths, we can live this amazing life. And so I want to learn everything there is to learn about it so I can teach everybody else. And then we're just, as a ADHD community, we're just going to now rise up and be the people that we have deserved to be.
I mean, yeah, you just basically, that's the whole purpose that I set the ADHD Reframe project up for, is just to reframe. So the tagline at the
Good.
moment is from deficit to difference, but focusing on strengths and not it's so I, out of frustration of seeing so much negativity on social media platforms, kind of decided I wanted to put a positive reframe on my symptoms and my life and focus on my strengths rather than just sitting there nurturing. I find time blindness bad. I struggle to plan. I can't do this, I can't do that. Rather than saying I can't, I just like to think, I now automatically in my brain will think, well, it's not that I can't do that, it's just that I might need to make a few tweaks to it or do it in a slightly different way because of my ADHD. And so, yeah, it's just that positive reframing and focusing on strengths, because I can, before last year, I probably could list a long list of negative things about me, not just about my ADHD, but about me. And then last year, I just decided to kind of nurture the positive things that I
No.
have. And I went through an unmasking journey. The whole of 2024 was just, I decided I was going to stop masking my ADHD, because apart from it being exhausting to mask 24/7, I just decided, like, I've got a big personality and my ADHD is part of that personality, but it's not completely me, if that makes sense. And but just unmasking, since the unmasking had started, I'm quite funny. I can be funny without even trying. And, I just care, and I'm really enthusiastic and full of a lot of energy, but then some days I'm not. There's no kind of in between or middle ground. But I just think, by just the unmasking and then focusing on the strengths is just allowing, like, within my university, I've had quite a few students, I'm going off on a tangent now, I'm sorry, reached out to me at the end of the year last year and said to me, like, because of the work that I've done within the university and because of the way that I've talked about ADHD and continue to talk about it until people actually started to really listen, they've then gone off and kind of are following their diagnosis journey, or whether they're going to be diagnosed or not. And I think for us women, it's like there's such a societal kind of norm or expectation that we're just all going to get on with things and not really kind of, do you feel that there's more pressure on women maybe to mask or just to get on with things and just not talk about it?
Yeah, I do. I think though that it comes from more of patriarchal societies where that's a whole other conversation we can go down, but I think that's where that's stemming from, just that minimization of women's struggle. Obviously it's not as bad as us, right? That attitude. One of the things that I noticed that that pathologizing the ADHD symptoms as the negative. When I was going through my bachelor's program, I was getting my bachelor's in psychology, and I was deciding if I wanted to get my master's, yada yada. And I was really disillusioned with the pathologizing of psychoanalysis and behaviorism. And I was like, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with me. And then I learned about Maslow and humanistic psychology. And I was like, oh, there's like actually like self-actualization. Like I can like dig my teeth into this. And so I actually got my master's and a doctorate in humanistic psychology and did my research in positive psychology, because I think that we need to shift from pathologizing. And that my business, my practice, my motto or my little catchphrase is, minimize your struggles, maximize your strengths, is because we're not going to pathologize this. We're going to live and rejoice in what we have. These are our gifts. Now you can use them, or you could just struggle. And so I think that this new movement, which started in 2000, this positive psychology movement,
Yeah.
I think that's going to help women, pulling us up. And I think that's going to uplift us more. So we need to lean into that, because I think that pathologizing is what's also helping minimize. To kind of go back to the original question, that's also minimizing. So it's a little bit of the patriarchy, but it's also this old system of old psychology, this pathology, that there's something wrong with you.
I mean, I'm studying psychology as well, so I'd love to have you back to talk about psychology in the
Oh,
future because
anytime. Yeah.
I love psychology. It's weird because when I was at school and obviously growing up and not being diagnosed until later in life, like the shame, the guilt, I call it
Mhm.
toxic trauma that I've carried into my adult life. But just all of that negative conditioning, operant condition, negative conditioning that I've had to put up with as a child, being told that there was basically most of my life been told there's something wrong with me when there's not really. I am different, but that's not a bad different. It's a good different. But kind of bringing that kind of there's something wrong with me and it's a bad thing into my adulthood has been quite a challenge for me to kind of step out of
Mm.
that. And I feel like last year was like a huge growth journey for me where I just finally I found the self-acceptance and just welcomed in like the nurturing of all of the positive things
Yeah.
about me. And I think, do you think though that there is because someone said something to me a few days ago about toxic positivity. What are your thoughts on that? Because it's puzzled my little brain. I don't know why it has, but I've never really heard of the quotation before.
Yeah, I think that really came from people trying to fake it to make it, faking this positivity. And so, which it really isn't healthy. But when we are living into like positive psychology and leaning into being more intentional to promote positive emotions and the benefits of positive emotions, I think that's not toxic. That's
Yeah.
actually very, very healthy. And I think people are afraid of it. Like, yeah, I hear it all the time, all the toxic positivity. And I'm like, no, I'm just positive. My goal is to intentionally lean into the positive emotions and try to lean away from the negative emotions. Not to say I don't have negative emotions, but there's a lot of health benefits to positive emotions. Huge, from physical health to just your mental health to resiliency. I did my dissertation on positive emotions, so I can talk for days on the benefits of it. But I think that we need to, when people, again, it's that ableism. I don't know, the toxic positivity. No, I'm positive. Let me be positive. And I'm not faking it. But I guess there was a time when people were trying to fake it. Don't fake it. Just go try to find some joy, find some
Yeah.
awe, be proud in something, have some gratitude. Those are all things you can do.
I think as well, I can't remember who it was that said it to me, but they said that the process of the inner negativity rumination actually can cause more negative rumination, and all you're doing is just feeding that negativity all the time, and it can actually change the process. Neurotransmitters in your brain can change if you're always the neuroscience behind it is if you're always thinking about things in a negative way, then you're just, and I've experienced this at times in my life as well, where I've just basically just been so negative about everything that it's like, when in the 80s and 90s, I remember my grandma or maybe my auntie saying to me like positive mental attitude, and I used to think, what a load of nonsense. But if you think you can't do something, or if you are going to the negative almost straight away without considering anything else, then surely you're setting yourself up to just be negative. What do you
Well,
think?
you are. You're setting yourself up to fall into this neurochemical cycle that is going to be really hard to come out of. So, for the ADHD brain, we are short on dopamine. Well, crisis causes dopamine. Ruminating on negative yuckies gives you dopamine. So, oh, right. So now you're getting this positive reward for doing this thing that you probably shouldn't be doing. And you're also getting some pops of cortisol, which over time we slowly get accustomed to, AKA addicted to the cortisol. And so we get into this vicious cycle when all we need to do is stop the cycle, go get dopamine somewhere else. You don't need to get it from negative thinking and crisis seeking, but go get some sunshine, stand up, go for a walk, have a cup of coffee, have a chocolate. There's other places for dopamine. But again, it's learned behavior. I go to where I'm comfortable. And ruminating is where I'm comfortable because for me, that's safe. And we have to start questioning him. Is that safe? That's not safe for you. Right. So we have to start to catch ourselves in the cycle, change our brain chemicals so we don't get stuck in it. And
Yeah,
then the cortisol over time, we won't be so addicted to it because we're not going to need it. We'll drain it from our body, build up some oxytocin, and start feeling better. But yeah, just becomes a vicious cycle in our brain.
exactly. Yeah, sometimes words elude me. I can't really speak words sometimes because
Yeah.
my brain is just like, what was that word that you wanted to say? And it's just so yeah, I mean, I couldn't yeah, that's an
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you for explaining it like that because
Yeah.
it just makes sense and I think, kind of just yeah, looking at the positives. Like I can list the things, I can list my ADHD symptoms and tell you what challenges they can give me on any given day, minute by minute, day by day. But I think I actually enjoy more talking about the positive things that I have or I can do. And I think, kind of normalizing that
Yeah.
without it
Yeah.
being perceived as toxic is an amazing thing to do because
I would say always start with your positives. I always do. And even as a kid, people were like, you have ADHD. And I'm like, yeah, I got a lot of energy. You don't. Like, I would always lead with, I can do this. You can't. Like, what's your strength? And so when people talk to me about my ADHD, I very rarely talk about my symptoms. Very rarely. I might talk about how I'm overly punctual and I'm never late. I won't talk about my time blindness because I've fixed it. I am now overly punctual. So now any neurotypical person is a second late. I'm just like, I'm the ADHDer. Like I fixed it. So I don't talk about my weaknesses. If somebody's like, oh, you have ADHD, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally a divergent thinker. If you need to brainstorm, call me. I'm resilient. I always pop back up. I'm empathetic, compassionate. I am super creative. Like I list all of my strengths that are inherent to me because of my ADHD. And then they're like, oh, well, let's talk about your time blindness. I'm like, well, let's. I could tell you what I do for it. So I never lead with, here's where I'm struggling. Because, yeah, then you're going to live in that deficit mindset. And then ADHD is this big mountain I have to climb and I'm never going to be anywhere. But if we shift our focus to our strengths and the positive, then we'll live in that strength based mindset and actually
uh,
reach our goals.
exactly. And yeah, and that's pretty much what I've done for the last year or 18 months, I think, is just basically nurture the strengths. First of all, finding out what my strengths were because I had no idea. And then second of all, nurturing them so then I'm not just focusing on I can't do this, I can't do that. You can do anything you set your mind to. You just need to learn how to either cope or get some strategies put in place so then you can not be late. You can, overcome the executive functioning things part
Yeah.
of the brain that's missing. Yeah. I wonder what about RSD? Have you got
Yeah.
any thoughts on that? Because RSD literally for most of my life has been absolutely debilitating to the point where it was like a physical pain. And I just wondered, obviously, with all of the research and all of the studying you've done, what are your thoughts about ADHD, hyperarousal, and RSD?
RSD. Yeah, this could be, we can actually deep dive here because this is where all my clients are coming in. They're coming in with issues with rejection sensitive dysphoria and justice sensitivity. And I always like to tell people they're the same coin. It's just two different sides. They're all coming from this intense emotional dysregulation. And what's going on is what's happening to us is hitting our bodies first, and then our mind is trying to make sense of it. And our connect, it's this big disconnect, but it is the most impactful piece of ADHD. Like showing up late or having a difficult time organizing, that is not going to like hit you like RSD and justice sensitivity do. RSD hits you physically. The same brain the same brain mechanisms that contribute to pain receptors, physical pain receptors, are being reacted when you're being RSD and JS triggered. And so you're having physical pain. You're having reactions that could last anywhere from a day to 3 days. You're having, for many of us, I get dorsal vagal shutdown, which means I go into the freeze state, which means my heart rate goes real low and I just need to crawl under my bed and hide some people go into fight flights where it's that constant racing heart and they feel like they're, that panic. I actually have walked out of a job because of justice sensitivity, where I had a supervisor say something patriarchally demeaning about a woman coworker. And I was just like, I didn't even think about it because it could be so triggering, like neurotypical. I can't explain it to neurotypicals. Like we get it.
Yeah.
We get the intensity of it. And I had somebody the other day comment on one of my posts that was real flippant. They said something like RSD and justice sensitivity is just your white privilege. And I'm just like, ableism, that's ableism. Like you have no idea what people of all colors and races with ADHD, because by the way, ADHD is not just a white person problem. Like
Yeah.
every culture out there struggles with this. In fact, there's a ton of research in China on ADHD, which is they do a lot more research. We are experiencing something real. So I'm really passionate because we experience something real that hurts really, really deep. And I would take all of my executive function symptoms. I would take those 10 times worse if you can get rid of my RSD and my justice sensitivity. So impactful. I've recently discovered a medication. Ironically, through my menopause journey, I was put on clonidine for my hot flashes. And then somebody else said, oh yeah, that's to treat RSD. No one told me. And I'm a specialist in this. Remember, there's a medicine for this. Like, why had
What?
no one told me this? And it works amazingly. And I've been on it now for years. And I have not had one major RSD trigger big spike since I've been on it. So there's medication for this. Talk to your doctor, talk to your prescriber.
I wonder if we can get it in the UK though, because we're a few years behind your medical
There's
things in the
two
UK, aren't we?
medications. There's two here in the States that we can have access to. So you'll have to check where you are, but it's guanfacine and clonidine are the two that we prescribe here in the States for RSD. It works for me. My clients are very happy on it, but there is medication out there. So if you are really, really struggling, please ask your prescriber. And if your prescriber does not know, find a prescriber that specializes in ADHD, that actually knows the research, that when you say, I have menopause and I'm struggling, they've heard of the studies, so ask. And ADHD prescribers, I tell all my clients I have ADHD. I don't hide it. So if your doctor's like, I'm not happy to disclose that, find another doctor. Because us ADHDers, we are here for each other.
I go into my GP, obviously you're in America, so your medical systems are very different to ours, but I go in to see my GP and they don't have a clue. Like they literally, it's just like I'm talking to them in Chinese or Spanish because they know the minimal amount of information about ADHD, but they don't, a couple of the doctors I've said to them about RSD and emotional hyperarousal, and they're looking at me as though I'm talking in a different language. And it's like, you're going to see a medical professional that you hope can help you, but you know more than they do, because obviously, when you've got brains like ours and when you're that like polar, goodness me, again, tongue-tied, I call it obsessed. When you're obsessed with ADHD, as we are, clearly, I'm not the only one now, you kind of, you're going in to see someone that's medically trained. I'm not medically trained, but you're seeing someone and you know more information about what you're going in to talk to them about than they do. Yeah, it's just
Yeah. I've gone in to see specialists where I have brought in studies. Here's the research. Why don't you read the studies and then we can talk about what I need from you? When I was going through menopause here in the States, the research that a lot of us went, the research that they based here on menopause is you don't give hormones until you're a year outside of menopause. However, that study had been debunked like years ago, and yet people never like recognized that. And so for a lot of us, we struggled. So, I'm taking in studies. Like, hello, treat me. And why am I having to do the work for you? But I had to see two different people to get the care I needed. So we have to advocate for ourselves.
yeah.
If you're curious about the studies, go to Google Scholar. You can Google and you can see the research that's out there. Russell Barkley has a YouTube channel where he gives all of the research. He has recently retired from doing it, which makes me so sad. But, learn about yourself and advocate for yourself because no one else is going to do it for us.
I can't believe you've just mentioned Dr. Russell Barkley because I actually sent him an email yesterday. Because in my mind, I've been, I'm trying to obviously the the ADHD Reframe project at the moment is not a business. I'm not making money, and I want to set it up so I can offer, free. I can put free webinars on. I can do maybe support groups. Obviously, I'm doing the podcast, and then I'm going to offer advocacy. So because advocacy is the thing. As an ADHD person, you've just
Yeah.
said you advocate. It's the thing I'm the
Yeah.
best at. Like, give me a fight, the injustice, or give me something where, there's an injustice or there's this, there's that, and I'm just going to resolve it for you. So yeah, I don't have like a business. So I've been considering like, can I find an investor or my brain is just like, you can imagine, can't you? Like my brain is like ching, 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 ching. So a couple of days ago, I went on YouTube and I was looking for the influencers or the big podcast people who have got the podcast and they've got like thousands or millions of subscribers. And I'm thinking, I've gone on a bit of a tangent here, but I love a tangent. And I was thinking, Dr. But I swear to God, right? My friends send me his videos all the time. The man is a legend. So yesterday I found his website and I sent him an email and bless his heart, right? Bless his heart. He is the only one person that has responded to any of the emails that I've sent. And he replied back to me and he said, I'm sorry, Emma, but since I've retired, I'm not doing things like that anymore. But I wish you all of the best with your project and I hope it goes really well. And I was just like, oh my God, he actually replied to, you get kind of starstruck because,
Yeah.
he's like being the leading voice for ADHD or ADD, wherever it is that
Yes.
and literally the man's in my eyes is a legend. And then you mentioned him and I'm like, he emailed me. I'm like, woo!
I love that. I love that. Yeah, without Russell Barkley, a lot of the research, he's been a real big advocate for us and he's really pushed through a lot of research and the work he's done with his YouTube channel and just getting that knowledge out. I love that he, in his retired little state, emailed
Yeah,
you back. I love that. Yeah, it made me sad that he retired. I mean, he deserves to retire. He's worked
of
hard. He's had
course.
a
Yeah.
great
The work he's
career.
done. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to miss his voice. I'm going to miss his voice in this arena because we need advocates like him
Yeah.
to share with people that this is real. We are struggling. We are going through something.
And even though his answer was no, even though he was like, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing that anymore because I'm retired, I didn't even care. I was just like, oh my God, he actually replied. I
He
had an
responded.
email from Dr. Ross. Like, I was just like really starstruck. I was like, oh my God, like he actually responded. But,
I love that.
it's just, there's just like a little, I know. And I was just like a little bit starstruck, but he's like, he actually took the time out of his retirement or out of his life. And even though it was a no, it was like he actually took the time to respond to my email. And
Wow.
that, I think, for me, meant more than the fact that it didn't bother me that he'd said no. If he'd have said yes, then I'd have been buzzing, obviously. But he said no. But at the end of the day, he actually took the time to reply to me and said, I'm sorry, but since I've retired, I'm not doing that anymore. And I just love that because it just shows that he's got a huge heart as well. So he genuinely cares. And I just replied back to him and just said, look, the work you've done is phenomenal and you deserve to have a rest now. So, thank you for getting back
Yeah.
to me. So, Yeah,
I
it's
love
just
that. I love that he responded. And I think that it really shows that he really embodies his work. Um and realizing that by maybe not responding, he could trigger an RSD episode at somebody. I mean, he might not have even considered that. I'm often considering like, am I going to trigger the RSD? Am I going to say it a different way? I don't really mean it that way. I'm always trying to be like really careful because I don't want to be triggered either. I'm curious to like his back, but it doesn't surprise me. He's a great
honestly.
individual, and he will be missed in this ADHD field for sure.
He will, but we can still revert back. We can still direct to his work, though, his YouTube channel. Now he's got his YouTube channel there. He can, his legacy is going to go
Yeah.
on for generations to come. So,
And I hope
it's,
it inspires us to continue to look at the research coming out. Again, like I mentioned, Google Scholar. We should be checking maybe every other month. Is there any new studies coming out? Because knowledge is power. One of the things I don't like to tell a lot of ADHDers this because it's scary, but we got to know because we have ADHD is untreated ADHD shortens our life anywhere from 7 to 13 years. That's significant. So if you think you have ADHD, go get tested. Treatment is not that hard. You might take a medication, you might, do some behavioral stuff to treat it, but can you imagine how much life you can live in 7 to 13 years? There's a lot out there. So we got to keep up on the research, know stuff about your ADHD so you can empower yourself to live this amazing life filled with strength and resiliency and,
yeah.
resources that we have that are special to us because of our ADHD.
I think I might like you as a best friend. Can I have you on speed dial?
I think you and I can definitely be friends. My fellow ADHD person that loves to do deep dives. I love to geek on this stuff. So anytime.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, small talk is a funny thing, a funny conversation. Well, funny conversation to talk about small talk, but literally, I can't. I don't do. I can't. It's almost physically painful. Someone says to me, "How are you?" Like I forget that the societal expectation is you're just going to respond with, "I'm good, thanks." No, if you ask me how I am, I'm going to tell you exactly
Right. Like,
how
well,
I
let me
am.
tell you about yesterday and how I did. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the
Yeah.
same way. Yeah.
And you can't just ask me like my daughter, I used to drive her mad until I explained, like, the storytelling and the back story and the tangent and I need to tell you my whole life story before I answer the question, do we have any cat food? I can't just say yes or no because, and it's only since I've kind of started, because she's 26 now. Yeah, she's 26, 27 this year. And it's only since I've started talking to her about, ADHD and explaining that these things are, this is how I am and this is why I am like this. It's kind of, yeah, but small talk is, I literally just can't do it. It's painful because I'm just like, no, because someone will say to me, I'll ask them back, politely. So yeah, I'm good, thanks. When I try it, I'm okay, not too bad is normally what I say. And then I'll ask them and they'll be go, yeah, I'm good, thanks. And I'm looking at them saying, no, you're not, because I can read you like a book. I know you're not all right, but you're just not able to say that you're not all right.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's like a conversation for another day, isn't it? But it's also like, there's people that I speak to from within my university and a couple of other people I've met through LinkedIn. And it's like, they don't have ADHD, but it's like I've had to teach them about ADHD. It's weird. It's like I'm teaching you about ADHD, but it's like, yeah, don't. And I advocate for myself all the time. I said, there's a possibility that I'm going to be no more than 5 minutes late. I'm going to turn up probably in a massive chaos, but I'll definitely be there. If you ask me a question, I'm not going to give you a straightforward answer. I can't. There's no close questions with me because it just doesn't work. If you ask me something, I'm going to go off on a million tangents and I'm going to tell you about everything else but what you just asked me about. And then I'll come back to the point that you asked me. Or after 10 minutes, I'll say to you, what was the question again? And it's just like, yeah, but I think it's just like, there's never a dull moment. when I'm around, like, when I'm around people that I feel really comfortable with, there's just never a dull moment because life is just too boring.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but it's like, a lot of people say to me, like, "You're very, very passionate and enthusiastic." And I'm like, "What you actually mean is I'm full of energy and I'm on full throttle all the time." And they're like, "Yeah, you're quite intense, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'm intense. Imagine living with me 24/7. I am intense all the time." I don't think being intense is a bad thing. If I set my
No.
mind on something, I'm just going to get it done. No one else seems to go on my time frame either. I'm like, sitting there tapping my foot, waiting for them to catch up with me. But it's like this stuff it's just this ADHD, but it's great. Like, I'm so proud to be a strong,
Yeah.
like, diagnosed ADHD woman who actually has more strengths than weaknesses. And I'm proud to sit and say to you, we can talk
Yeah.
about periods, we can talk about menopause, we can talk about ADHD, rejection sensitivity, but come on, like, there's so much fun and, like, I have, like, the massive personality where everything is always funny and everything's always it's not funny as in I'm laughing at other people. I mean, I don't even try. I don't even know how I do it, but my partner says it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But I just like the one-liners, the way that I say things, and it's like everyone just laughs around me, and I just think, well, we need to nurture that stuff more, don't we? We need to kind of, because life is too serious otherwise. I'm just like monotone, boring, anything, and my brain just starts thinking about sparkly shoes and, just anything and everything already.
Yeah, we do need to nurture that, and we don't. We traumatize children for it.
Yeah,
And a lot of my trauma comes from, you're too loud, you're too excited, you're too. Yes, I get it. I get it. Yes, I'm excited. I also will reach my goal before they will reach their goal because I am excited and I have a lot of energy. And yet you
yeah,
beat that out of me. And now I am traumatized. And now I have CPTSD from it. And yeah, when somebody tells me I'm intense, I'm like, you're not the person for me then. I'm not going to mask my intensity because I have places I want to be. You're welcome to come with me. You're welcome to stay here. But yeah, it's okay to be intense. It's okay to be excited. It's okay. That means we're living life. And I think that people want to push that down because they're not in a happy place. And so rejoice in that intenseness. I do. I'm intense too. I'm loud.
yeah,
I'm funny. If you want to be around me, great. But if you're going to do what they did when I was a kid and tell me, sit down, shut up, you're too much. Yeah, bye. I'm an adult
yeah,
now. I don't have to hear it. So rejoice in that. Yeah, live
yeah,
your life, be happy.
yeah.
Going back, positive emotions make you, they're
Exactly,
good.
yeah,
They're a good
yeah.
thing.
But it's like because I haven't worked since 2019, because I also have fibromyalgia, so I live with chronic pain, and my mental health is I have depression and
Yeah.
anxiety, and then a couple of years I was finally diagnosed with complex PTSD, and I haven't worked for so long, and last year I did apply for quite a few different jobs, but I didn't get them for whatever reason, and the feedback was always, "Oh, your passion, enthusiasm is always clear to see, but," and I'm like, "Yeah, but
Mm.
everything after a but is BS," let's say, it's like I kind of realized at the end of last year that I don't really fit a professional or a corporate business environment, because I feel like I'd be held back too much. I don't fit that mold. So again, the ADHD Reframe project is going to be where I create my own mold, and then hopefully
Yeah.
can enable other people to find their mold, and then hopefully eventually at the end of this year I can start making money through it as well. But I think, my train of thought is, because there are more and more ADHD spaces and environments that have been opened, and we are being more encouraged to be ourselves, and there's not that rigid societal expectation anymore for us. But I think if I can build my own mold and create something that I enjoy, that I love, and that is not hard work for me. Talking about ADHD is not hard work at all, at all. So if I could just get paid to talk about it for the rest of my life, I'd be happy. But it's just, it's fun and I enjoy it. So I think it's just trying to find your special interest, and my special interest
Yeah.
happens to be ADHD. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
think you nailed it on the head. ADHDers and for people with autism, if we can find an area where we are monetizing our special interest, we're going to be living this really, really wonderful life. I managed to do that through two different avenues. I used to teach ballet, special interest. Now I'm in this field, special interest. But that's how I've lived my life. I think ADHDers, we tend to break molds and recreate structure. So, if that environment doesn't feel right, create your own. We are entrepreneurs. I'm in Seattle, Washington, where, a lot of the tech industry is us, it's us, it's autistic and ADHDers, it's us. And so we're creating and building and doing things that haven't been done before. So if the system doesn't fit, create a new system. You got the skills, ADHDers, man. We got the
I
skills. If
literally could
anybody
not
I
have
had to
said
put
that.
money on, it's us.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. I feel like there's a
Yeah.
revolution that's happening and we're going to change.
Yeah.
I say to my partner, tongue in cheek, I say, yeah, I'm going to change the world. But although I probably am not going to change everyone's world, if I just help one person for the rest of my life, I'd be happy with that because I love helping other people.
Yeah.
And if that means that I talk about ADHD all the time, then that I'm happy with that because it's just educating other people about what it actually is to live with it, but not live with it in a negative way. But actually, these are the things that are positive about my ADHD. What about you? Because we've all got
Yeah.
strengths. We've all got a positive reframing in us. It's just being given the opportunity to kind of take a step back and think, okay, so, like we've talked about today, we've mentioned quite a few things and it's like, I love it. And you're my first guest for this year, so I love it already. So I hope you will come back again because I could talk to you
I
for the
would
rest of
love
the day.
to. I would love to come back anytime you want to deep dive on ADHD, neurodivergence, or trauma. I would love to come back and talk. I think that your work is important and I'm so glad you're doing this. So thank you
Thank
from the
you.
ADHD community. Thank you for sharing and having a voice and helping us, get the word out.
And thank you for being my first guest in 2026. It's been an absolute pleasure. So yes, we have come to the end of this special episode with Dr. Cristina, tongue-tied again,
Out.
Louk. Thank you. You knew I wasn't going to be able to say. Dr. Cristina Louk, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you again very soon. So thanks to our listeners. Share and follow and share if you want to hear a bit more from me. And hopefully I'll catch you all next time. Thank you. Goodbye now.